I've been to Romamu, I've been to BJ, I've searched all over for a place to pray. Everybody sing. I found the mosh pit and knew that this was it. I am a moshnik and I'm here to stay. And I'm turning gray. Actually, I'm turning white. I found community that is in tune with me, singing and dancing in our Zumagog. Some contemplation mixed with elation. I am a moshnik and I'm here to stay. And I'm turning gray. It's a chance to meet you. It's a chance to greet you. A time to deepen what it means to belong. Let's spread some fun tonight and spread some joy and light. I am a moshnik and I'm here to stay. And I'm turning gray in honor of the memory of Hoff. The Holy Harmonica coming to us from the highest of the highs. Lamala, Lamala, Lamala. He still sounds good, doesn't he? All righty. Thank you, Hoff. And thank you all for coming this evening. Oh, look. Rep Sarah snuck in, and Marlena, and Susan, and Anna. And I think I welcomed everybody else already. So welcome this evening. Without further ado, I would like to introduce, as I said before, my teacher, my friend, my colleague, the rabbi who's most credited by me of helping me survive the Aleph Rabbinical program by inviting me to apply to the Hashpa'ah, the spiritual direction program, where I really found myself and my rabbinate took shape in a way that I could never, ever, ever have guessed. So without further ado, please welcome Rabbi Nadya Gross.
I love your soundtracks, Mark. Thank you so Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. It's lovely to be here. I always love being part of the Moshe community, and I know so many of you, and we overlap in the Yerusha community, and so many other places where we overlap. But um, I can also say, just to sort of pay back Mark a little bit, when Mark started Moshe, oh, so long before it became a Zoomagog during COVID. Um, Amitai, who is my third child, was living and working in the Washington, D.C. area, and said to us then, he's the only rabbi besides you guys that I'm willing to daven with. And he loved going to your services and being part of your then fledgling community. So it's been a joy to witness you know the,
Nadya,
the exponential growth of this
Nadya,
community. Yes.
Rabbi Mark officiated at the bar mitzvah of my grandson. How many years ago was it?
Many, many. Thanks for the shout out.
So yes. So we are here to talk about stuff that's sometimes I applaud you for being here to have this conversation and to explore what it means to write your own Vidui, your own deathbed confession, or whatever that will turn out to be. But
Rabbi
before
Nadia,
we go into
if I can
that,
interrupt you just for a second, someone asked if there's a reason why you are not enlarged as a speaker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spotlight Rabbi Nadia, and if you want to go back to gallery view so you see everybody, you all know how to do that, I assume. But I'm going to spotlight.
We're still spotlighted right
What's
now.
that?
We're still spotlighted right
I'm
now.
spotlit? Oh, you're right. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to spotlight you, Reb Nadya. And then again, if you don't want Reb Nadya's spotlight, go back and change it to gallery view.
All right, if I want
Okay,
to see everybody.
there
Okay,
you go. Sorry for the interruption.
yeah, thank you. So I want to start with a story, and I invite you to listen to this story um, in a contemplative way. So that would mean taking a few deep breaths to relax yourself, sit comfortably in your seat. If you're comfortable, you might want to close your eyes or lower your gaze so that your focus is on the inner landscape, we say. And this is a story of twins. It has been said that at a good birth, when the baby cries, the family smiles or laughs. At a good death, the family cries and the dying one smiles. Once upon a time, twin boys were conceived in a womb. Weeks passed and the twins developed. As their awareness grew, they laughed for joy, joy for their conception, joy to be alive. Time passed and they began to explore the womb. When they found the cord that led to their mother and gave them life, wow, what a great mother that she gives us life. Now, weeks continued into months and they both grew. It got tight in there and there was an intermittent squeezing that got uncomfortable and frightening. The twins noticed how much each was changing. What does this mean? Said one. It means that our stay in this world is coming to an end. But I don't want to go. But maybe there's life after birth. But how can there be? We'll lose the cord. And how is life possible without it? Besides, we've seen evidence that others have been here before us, and none have returned to tell us that there is life after birth. No, this is the end. And the one twin became despondent. If conception ends in birth, what's the purpose of life in the womb? It's meaningless. Maybe there's no mother after all. But there has to be. How else did we get here? How do we remain alive? Have you ever seen our mother? Maybe she lives only in our minds. Maybe we made her up because the idea made us feel good. So the last days in the womb were different for each of the twins. One twin worried constantly, lived in fear and deep questioning. The other had faith and trust and waited expectantly. At the time of birth, the twins opened their eyes and found a world beyond their wildest dreams. They cried and their family smiled. So I hope that you have something to write with, to make notes with, to journal. And I'd like to invite you now into 2 or 3 minutes of quiet. What I want you to journal about is what you heard in the story and how that affects your feelings about death generally and your own specifically. So, what did you hear in the story that informs your feelings, your thoughts about death, your own and generally? And I'm going to be quiet for about 3 minutes and then I'll call you back. About a minute left. You might want to just make some bullet points to remember things that you can fill in later. So Rabbi Mark is going to invite you all into breakthrough rooms. My hope was for dyads. Yes.
So there are no.
So now that you've been contemplating dying and sharing that with someone, I want to take us to those moments just before death happens. In the Jewish tradition, not only, but those, sometimes I teach this to multi-faith groups, and the Catholics will say, we have the same thing. And I'll say, where do you think you got it from? Or, so meant certainly in the Christian world, there are forms of this, and we started it. Let's put it that way. So we have this incredible prayer that is offered on the deathbed. Now, there was a time when the intention was that the dying person actually said this Vidui. And you might recognize the word from Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, we do communal Vidui, communal confession, an acknowledgement of our wrongs, right? Vidui literally means to confess, a confession, or an acknowledgement, ownership. Taking ownership is also what that word means. And so we are meant at the end of our lives to actually confess and own who we are, who we've been, the life that we've lived, and acknowledge that life has to end, and to come into the presence of whatever it is that you find when you make that passage from the womb, right? That from the story that you just heard. So, Rabbi Mark, if you will show that first slide, I'm going to first tell you a little bit about how I came to do this. As a rabbi, I was often called to a dying person, and also it happens to be a big part of my call and my rabbinistry to work with people who are dying. So I found myself at deathbeds a lot. And I discovered over a few early years that when I would say the Vidui, one of two things would happen. Either it would frighten the family and the dying person, that the rabbi has now given up on them and is pronouncing them almost dead, or it was meaningless to them. They had no idea what that was about, and I was just saying words that were really meaningless. And what I really wanted with the Vidui was this opportunity to really come into the presence of the Holy One, of the mystery as death approaches. I wanted people to really experience the majesty of that, the mystery of that, the awesomeness of that. And so I want to share with you what one version of the Vidui says in English. This is from the Reform Rabbi's Manual and probably one of the more accessible in English, not old English with the thous and the, vouchsafes and all those things. It says, "My God and God of all who have gone before me, author of life and death, I turn to you in trust. Although I pray for life and health, I know that I'm mortal. If my life must soon come to an end, let me die, I pray, at peace. If only my hands were clean and my heart pure, I confess that I have committed sins and left much undone. Yet I know also the good that I did or tried to do. May my acts of goodness give meaning to my life, and may my errors be forgiven.
Okay, I'm sorry, there's not much.
Protector of bereaved and the helpless,
Are you sure?
watch over my loved ones.
Eat like
Into your hand I commit my spirit. Redeem it, O God of mercy and truth." It's a beautiful translation, fairly close to the Hebrew. That's why I like this particular one. And however, as I said, even when I would say it in English, for those who didn't know the Hebrew, it was words. It didn't have a lot of meaning for people. So I wanted to create a way for people who were dying to write their own vidui, to write their own deathbed confession, so that their own words would be the words that they heard as they were dying. Today, it's very rare for the dying person to be conscious enough or awake enough because the medications that we use to help people have less pain at the end of life. And so it's generally read by a loved one, a family member, a clergy person. But I wanted it to be their words. And so on the second slide, we see that I also discovered, as I was developing this idea, I had to write my own. I had to write my own to know how it feels. And what I discovered in writing my own was that it was the closest I came to actually putting my nose up against my mortality. Because if I write my Vidui, and as I am going to encourage you to do, you have to write it for now, not for 20 years from now. You have to write it as if death might come in this next near period of time. So I discovered that it's a way to make meaning, not only as the end of life approaches, but also to make meaning of my life now as life goes on. And I base it on this beautiful teaching from the Babylonian Talmud. Rabbi Eliezer said, "Repent one day before your death." And his disciples asked, "How does one know which day that is?" His response, "Exactly. For that reason, we ought to live our lives each day as though it were our last." So when we write our Vidui, we're writing it as if this day might be our last. And what I'm going to tell you now and invite you to consider, and I'll remind you at the end too, is that I write my Vidui every year on my birthday. I update it or I rewrite it. Sometimes I start from scratch. Sometimes I look at what I wrote the year before and I make some changes and adjustments. But that way, and it's in a file that my family knows where to find it. That way, it's something, for some reason, in the course of this next year, I might find myself dying or dead. My family will have a Vidui to read that is pretty accurate for this year, for this moment. Not something I wrote 5 years ago, which has already changed. And you're going to see in a moment as we go through it why things change, and how this really works to help us make meaning. So on the next slide, thank you, Mark. I looked at that Vidui that I read to you, and I parsed it out. What does it consist of? It begins with the address to whom I'm presenting myself. Right? So we had, you know, Holy One of Blessing, some people might say, or my God and God of my ancestors, author of life and death, or my God, the source of breath. Or maybe you don't believe that you are being presented to God. And what I like to say is that when this is being read for you on your deathbed, you are being presented, you are being presented to whatever it is that awaits you as you cross that threshold. So what is it that you believe you are entering into? That is the address. That's how you start the Vidui. And then I want to have a little bit of who I am, the accomplishments that I'm proud of, the relationships that are meaningful in my life, right? So this is who I am. This is who's being presented now to whatever awaits me on the other side of the veil. But also I need to acknowledge and confess what I've left undone, what regrets I have. And then there needs to be a statement of surrender. And often in the Vidui, it comes both at the beginning and at the end. And my prayer or my wish for those that I leave behind. All of that was contained in that brief Vidui that I read to you before. So when I say that this is a practice that makes meaning of the life I'm living in this moment, so I invite you to do this, even though, God willing, there's nobody here on this call who is living right now with with an expiry date. All of us, my friend Rabbi Simcha Raphael, who I know spoke at Moshe a couple of weeks ago, likes to say we all enter this life with an expiry date. We just don't know what it is. And some people, as they get closer, and if you have a life limiting illness, or you've been given a certain amount of time to live because of a terminal illness, still, when we don't have that, writing our Vidui is an incredible way of discovering something about ourselves and our values. So when I say I have to rewrite mine every year, it's because particularly that segment of the things I've left undone and the things I regret, they become my curriculum for the next year. I don't want each year that I write my Vidui to be regretting the same stuff. I mean, some things, yes, perhaps because I can't go back and change, perhaps. But for the most part, those things I've left undone, those things I regret, I have the year of living ahead of me to do some tshuva, to approach people if that's part of what it is, to change the way that I walk in the world. If what I'm saying is that I regret not being fully present to people, right? Now I've got a curriculum for the next year to remember to be fully present, to remind myself, to wake myself up. So that's why it needs to be rewritten every year. And I've chosen my birthday as the day. I like to wake up on my birthday and discover that I'm not dead. This is the time to celebrate and rewrite my Vidui and put the new copy into the folder. So I want you to just take a moment here, 30 seconds, to make a note of how would you address, what are you addressing? To whom are you being presented, or to what? How would you start your Vidui? And shared with you a few that have, you know, have been pretty common amongst people that have done this work with me, but perhaps you have a different thought. So just make a note, because all of this is going to end up being part of the homework that hopefully you'll attend to in the not too distant future. So just receiving you as you make your journey across that threshold into the great unknown mystery. And just to share a few, Holy One of Blessing, my God, the source of breath, the source and breath of life, I humbly thank you for the richness of the life you bestowed upon me. That's one that was written by a friend who was dying of ALS many, many years ago. And another, my God, the source and breath of life, co-creating in the great mystery and always us all. I am profoundly grateful for my life. Into your hand, I commit my soul. Or a Christian minister who did this work with me wrote, gracious and loving God, I have never experienced you in any other way. So there's so many ways that you can choose, and hopefully you've had a moment here and you've made a little note to yourself of where you would be heading. And then that surrender statement. So some of these continue, as I said, into your hand, I commit my soul. Allow my passing to be a healing for my family and friends. May the lessons I've tried to teach others be a true healing for all. Dear God, I want to live, but if this is your decree, then I accept it from your hand. I surrender to your will in this disease. And this was written by my friend who died of ALS about a month after she wrote this Vidui. So that tends to be a pretty common expression, you know, and we see it in the traditional Vidui. I really want to live, but if it's your will, then let my death be a healing, a clearing, a variety of ways that we can offer that surrender. Let me see if I have one more. My life has truly been blessed in all the worlds, and I have so much more to live yet, so much more to taste and to complete. I've long wished to live to be a very old woman, a grandmother, mother, teacher, and lover. Yet, if that's not to be, I know at any moment of ending that it has been a beautiful time in this place and in this body. That's how mine started in this last birthday just a month ago. So then we get to the body of the Vidui, which is our accomplishments and our regrets. What we want to say briefly enough, because remember, this is being said while you're dying. So you don't want it to be, you don't want it to take so long. that it keeps you from dying well. It's like, shut up already. I'm trying to die here. So you have to be pretty, pretty lean with your words. So it's really important. And I want to share, before I give you some time to do some journaling on your accomplishments and your regrets. Two poems that might help you get a sense of how you might construct, or what is the content, right? So here too, I want to invite you to just receive these two poems, to open your heart, your mind, to relax your body, to close your eyes if you wish, or lower your gaze so that you're just listening to the words. And this first is titled When Death Comes by Mary Oliver. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than an idea. And I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular. And each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending, as all music does, towards silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say all my life, I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I've made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up having simply visited this world. And next, Irma Bombeck wrote, If I had my life to live over. And she wrote this after she found out that she was dying from cancer. If I had my life to live over, I would have gone to bed when I was sick instead of pretending the earth would go into a holding pattern if I weren't there for the day. I would have burned the pink candle sculpted like a rose before it melted in storage. I would have talked less and listened more. I would have invited friends over to dinner even if the carpet was stained or the sofa faded. I would have eaten the popcorn in the good living room and worried much less about the dirt when someone wanted to light a fire in the fireplace. I would have taken the time to listen to my grandfather ramble about his youth. I would have shared more of the responsibility carried by my husband. I would never have insisted the car windows be rolled up on a summer day because my hair had just been teased and sprayed. I would have sat on the lawn with my grass stains. I would have cried and laughed less while watching television and more while watching life. I would have never bought anything just because it was practical, wouldn't show soil, or was guaranteed to last a lifetime. And instead of wishing away 9 months of pregnancy, I'd have cherished every moment and realized that the wonderment growing inside me was the only chance in life to assist God in a miracle. When my kids kissed me impetuously, I would never have said, later, now go get washed up for dinner. There would have been more I love yous, more I'm sorries. But mostly, given another shot at life, I would seize every minute, look at it and really see it, live it and never give it back, and stop sweating the small stuff. So with that as your inspiration, I want to invite you again for about 5 minutes to journal those accomplishments of which you're proud, that you want that mystery, that whatever it is you're just introduced yourself to know about you. What sums up who and what you are, the life you've lived, and the people that have been meaningful to you. And then the regrets, which may go hand in hand, right? As particularly as you recount people who've been meaningful to you. So again, I'm going to be silent and still for 5 minutes and give you time to just make some notes for yourself, to journal in response to that prompt. Invite any sharing, anything that wants to be shared now with this group from this experience, what the experience is like, what it's brought up for you, what questions you might have before we go any further. You don't have to share specifics about your accomplishments and regrets, though, if you want to. We welcome hearing that as well. Mary Rita, Miriam Ruth Hazoheret.
I just trusted what came up, and it was simpler than what I had done before, but I just trusted that. And I could feel it in my body, that I was much more relaxed. I didn't have to be perfect. And I smiled at things that, oh yeah, I remember writing that before. Maybe it's good it came up again, because maybe I'll pay attention this time for how I use time. This is a gift, because I can take this back to the one that was too long, but had wonderful things in it too. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anna L., please.
Well,
I thought I saw Devorah. Wait, Devorah, did you change your mind?
It's okay, Anna could go.
Right.
I've never done this before, and I think it's really worth doing. So I don't need to share my accomplishments nor my regrets out loud here, but I certainly want to continue the process and recognize that it's something that I really haven't done. I mean, it's there's a lot of new things that still are available to all of us, and that can make our life more meaningful. That we just watched the movie Avalon today, actually, and this was it was a good forerunner into this. I'm not getting the right words. I'm kind of tired, but anyway, thank you. It was beautiful. I'll continue.
Thank you. Yeah, it's quite a process. Thanks, Anna L. Devorah?
I have done some of this before, but as I started to think about it now, I had to sit and question what was coming up for me, because I feel like I have gone through so many changes and dealt with so much in the last few years that, like, I started thinking, oh, what are the things I regret? But all those things I've dealt with, it's like I'm here now and I have only this much time, whatever that is. And I really try, I do slide into regrets, but I try to just come back and go, okay, what can I do now? I can regret lots of stuff I did with my kids, but I have them now. This is what I have to deal with. And so I sat here for most of that time, really asking myself, do I really believe that? And
Uh-huh.
I feel like it's very strong now at this time.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So the regrets also don't, it's also wrapped in things that are not completed in our life, right? And when we're writing the Vidui for now, like I could die tonight or in the next, in the next period of time. For me, it's in the year ahead. So in mine, for example, if I were to die now, one of my regrets is that I didn't get to be a Sakta for very long, right? Um, I have a 2-year-old grandchild, and I want to see him grow, and so that's not a regret for something that I failed to do or did wrong or whatever, but it's like if I were to die now, that's something that's unfinished for me. Because I have these dreams of a relationship with this child. So, or, I didn't get to complete, our beloved friend, mentor, my mashpia, Rabbi Bert Jacobson, many of you knew him, who just died. He was writing his book on the Baal Shem Tov for the last 50 years of his life. I mean, he's been working. And when he received the diagnosis, and he knew that he had very little time left, he actually hustled and finished that book, and they actually found uh, you know, a publisher, and it will be published this fall. But they managed to rush a pre-publication print copy to him on his deathbed just a few weeks ago, so he could see the cover and what it would look like. It's not fully edited. I mean, for the copy editing, the errors in the setting, but he was able to hold it in his hands, right? Because his Vidui could have said, I regret that I never finished that book. But now that's not true, right? So it's not just those, things that wait. Hopefully we're living our lives and doing the tshuva that we need to do with individuals so that we don't die saying, I regret that I never forgave, or I never asked, never fixed this relationship. But it's more than that. It's what it really means to me. If my life ends now, what's that cutting off? And I want to say those things. I want to say those things because I'll tell you why. Because I don't want to cross into the mystery carrying a load of regret. I want them to be said so that they get left behind in the land of the living, right? And I can enter freely into whatever it is that I imagine I'm entering into. So thank you, Deborah, for giving me an opportunity to be a little bit more explicit here. Anyone else want to share what this experience is like for you so far? Eliana, I see you hesitantly. Go ahead. But unmute yourself.
You're right. You caught that. I'm hesitant. So I'll share what I wrote as far as my accomplishments. And this was just kind of stream of consciousness writing. I've been Catholic and now I'm Jewish. I've been a powerless woman and now I'm a woman of power. I wanted to be a doctor and now I'm a nurse practitioner. I wanted to be a priest and now I'm a rabbi. I was dependent and now I'm dependable, strong and free. I'm a miracle of change. I'm evolution. To my beloved, You who are the author of change have watched me change as I've lived into who I'm called to be.
The tears. That's beautiful, Eliana. That's just precious. Thank you for sharing that with us. Thank you so much. Yes, Rabbi Mark.
The hardest part of this, I always find, is getting out the holy Schneider and getting to the Ikar, like not making a list of things, but rather, as Eliana just so beautifully modeled, reminding me that poetry points to some greater truth in a much more succinct manner. I struggle with not coming out as poetically as I wanted to, but rather it being a list of, I could list regrets, but that's not what it's about. I want to be able to identify the things in my spiritual curriculum that are going to guide me forward to perhaps do a tikkun, a rectification of in the coming year. So how to identify, really breathe into what's most important and allow things to rise to the surface. It's very much like being in a spiritual direction session all by yourself.
Exactly.
and
It is.
guide and be guided and trust the process. I will admit to being a harsh reader of my own work. And so maybe I just need to get over it. or like in talk about movies, the moonstruck, snap out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Dibarti.
Shamati. And just let that stream of consciousness. I want to share with you, we have just a few minutes here. My friend who died of ALS, who she asked me to come and help her with this process. And she couldn't speak at all but she was able to type. She put it in the form of forgiveness. She wrote the whole thing. She said, I beg holy forgiveness for trying to control everything that happens to me. Please forgive me for not giving the time to parent my daughters and being caught up with daily activities that had nothing to do with what was really important. Please bless me as I forgive myself for not taking the time to connect with my husband on a daily basis and really expressing all my love for him. I forgive myself for not taking time to meditate or pray enough. I forgive myself for obsessing over details and conversations that were really not worth the time. I forgive myself and God for what's left undone, parenting and cultivating friendship with my children, learning to relax into retirement, rekindling my love for my husband, traveling, and she lists all the places she wanted to travel to, right? Having time to play with friends, learning Spanish and Hebrew, getting to know my grandchildren, of which there were none at the time, hiking, rafting, kayaking, and skiing. So this is how she encapsulated, right, her those things that she regretted as a way of, forgive me and help me forgive myself, so that she could let go of these things. So I want to close with just a story of what happened with this particular friend. She wrote her Vidui. She shared it with her chavura because she was emailing a lot. In the end, she couldn't really communicate. On the day that she was dying, Victor and I went to see her to say goodbye. And I knew she was dying, and she was very agitated. And she kept clutching at me, but she was heavily medicated, and I tried to figure out, was she clutching at because I had told her that the Vidui would be the last thing she would hear before she died. And I suddenly heard myself promising her that. And I whispered to her, I'll make sure you hear your Vidui. And I went to the family after I said goodbye to her and said, did she leave you with instructions about her Vidui? And they said, well, she shared it with us. We've heard it. I said, yeah, but it's supposed to be read as she's dying. Well, when should we do that? I said, well, that's really up to you, but I wouldn't wait too long. And we left. And early the next morning, her brother called to tell me that she had died. And he said that they were waiting for one other person to arrive before they read the Vidui. And the whole time they were waiting, she was more and more agitated, and no amount of Ativan or whatever they were giving her was helping her calm down. And then they all sat around her bed and they passed the Vidui hand to hand and each read a paragraph. And as soon as the Vidui was read, she calmed and within an hour took her final breaths. So, like, knowing that that is what you want to be saying, what you want to have heard by the mystery as you cross that threshold. That's it. That alone is the precious prompt for writing just the perfect words. And Mark, you get to practice it for many, many years yet to come, because we know that you're going to live to be a really old man. And so start now. Like, my blessing to all of you is that you take the time, and Rabbi Mark will share with you that document with the outline, and take the time and write what comes to you, what comes through you. Let it be your poetry, and it doesn't have to be anybody else's, but your words that you're going to hear whenever that time comes. So make sure you update it regularly, because we know that all of us have more years ahead, God willing. That's my blessing and my gratitude to you for joining me in this little exploration today.
Thank you, Rabbi Nadya, and thank you all for your holy presence this evening. And I just want to give a shout out to Diane Modell, for it was partially her generosity that gave birth to these 4 weeks of teachings on aging and saging, kicked off, of course, by Simcha Raphael, and then Eliana and Shulamit, and then last week Oren and Lucinda, and tonight Reb Nadia. You are the Chatima. Teach us to treasure each day. Teach us to treasure each day, that we may open our hearts to your wisdom. Oh, teach us to treasure each day. Sing it with me. That we may open our hearts to your wisdom. Oh, teach us to treasure each day. Treasure each day. Treasure each day. Oh, teach us to treasure each day. Treasure each day. Oh, teach us to treasure each day. Laila Tov, everyone. Thank you so much.